Yeah. So my path as a scientist has been not the straight one. It's been uh, very chaotic to compare it with the way I have my life. So I get so I got my bachelor's degree in physics at the University of National of Mexico, UNAM, and then I came to the States in 1990 to do my PhD at Northeastern University. So I did there a master's first, and then you get a master's as long as you do the PhD. Originally, I wanted to do high energy, so I really like to do particle physics. I really like them. So when I was undergrad, my thesis was in Feynman diagrams to study the proton-proton interaction and decay to kaons. Well, proton-kaons interaction and then some dynamics like that. So I really liked it. So when I arrived in Northeastern, I started doing supersymmetry. So I wanted to do that. But then when I was finishing the master's and working on my PhD dissertation, so I was doing supersymmetry, and that time it was 1993 when the superconductor super collider was canceled. So this is a big project to do to study particle physics in Texas. They were constructing this huge particle accelerator, and it got canceled because it was going over budget. It was was planned for 4 billion. It was already $2 billion spent, and there were some other problems too. But it got canceled. So when it got canceled, I thought, well, there's going to be a lot of high energy physicists unemployed, and I'm okay, but I don't think I'm the greatest. So I'm going to have a hard time finding a job. So I was trying to consider what to do if I really wanted to continue in that area or not. So then a friend of mine, he was working with another professor that just arrived, that was working with computers and doing complex systems. And I always liked it to do simulations. So a lot of the calculations I used to do was also doing computers for the supersymmetry. So then I thought, well, let's talk to this other professor, Alan Karma. So I talked to him, and he was starting to do some application of nonlinear dynamics to the heart. So I said, well, this is kind of interesting, and especially because he had a lot of money for computers, and I like computer simulations. So I started working with him. Yeah, it was a little tough at the beginning because I was still missing particle physics. I always thought myself doing high energy. So it was a transition that it was a little hard. I was a little depressed for a while, and as I say, if you're studying, you do a PhD, all of you who finish, you know that you have to go through a depression before you finish. It's part of the requirement. So before you see the end of the tunnel, you get a little low, but then you eventually succeed. So I work in complex systems, and I really liked it. Again, my path is not straight, so most of the people finish in 4 or 5 years because I changed, and I had to learn a lot of, especially for applying for the heart, a lot of biology, a lot of physiology. Things were not that easy, so it took me 10 years to get my PhD degree. So I graduated. So when a lot of people say, oh, it took me too long to finish, you say, well, I think I can beat almost anybody. It took 10 years to finish my degree. Once I finished, then I wanted to apply what I learned a little bit more to reality. So not just to have theories and simulations that they had nothing to do with reality. So I really wanted to apply these complex systems dynamics to the heart, to real problems. So I got hired at Long Island Jewish Hospital in New York. So I was a postdoc there. I had opportunity then to learn a little bit more about the clinical side of the heart. From there, then I became a postdoc at Hofstra University in the math department. So then I was combining a little bit of the clinical work that I learned there, and then with the math department. Then I became. Then I go back to another hospital, which was the Beth Israel Hospital in New York. Then I worked there now as a researcher. So I was there for a few years. And then I wanted to get more, I had the clinical aspect, but really we needed some experimental data to validate some of the problems, some of the models that I was working on. So we moved to, I moved to Cornell University in Ithaca, in New York, upstate New York. Because there was a professor there who was doing experiments, and then I thought, oh, that's great, I can get access to real data. When I arrived there, Robert Gilmore, who was the professor there, he became Dean of Research. So then all his time was basically done, he spent it on meetings. So the lab was open and there was no experiments going on. There were a few, but not really too much. So then he told me, just go there and do experiments. So I arrived, I started playing with experiments, and I was that part, I was actually in the veterinary school. So I went through my trajectory again. So from physics, I went to a hospital, then to a math department, to another hospital, and then to a veterinary school. And in that veterinary school, then I learned to do experiments. I learned to do optical mapping and some microelectrode recordings, and that allowed me to really get the data that I wanted. And so eventually I became an experimentalist as well. So the nice thing is that I became a theoretician, a computer scientist, and an experimentalist too. Combine the three things, and then that allowed me to open the doors for a faculty position eventually. So I was a researcher for many, many years. So I didn't become a faculty professor until I was 46. So it was hard because for many years I was basically a researcher on soft money. So a lot of time I had to spend working on grants, trying to get money to support me and the research and some of the students I had, but it was not true being a faculty. So finally, when I got an offer from Georgia Tech, so then I came to Georgia Tech when I was 46, and then got finally my first tenure position. No, but it was not tenure; it was tenure track. And then 6 years later, I got tenure and full professor. So I became full professor, but not until I was 52. So it was a long road, but compared to other of my peers, but it was an interesting road, and I learned a lot of things on the way.